Good morning. As the business unit manager at KAI Automotive Group, it is important that I understand and am aware of the wide economic conditions which we operate within. This is especially important in our automotive industry due to its extremely volatile nature in the past year. To ensure everyone has a mutual understanding, I'll begin today by defining three major macroeconomic indicators: GDP, inflation, and unemployment. Gross domestic product, GDP, is the complete market value of all final goods and services created in a certain economy over a fixed period of time. This reflects output into the economy, and for a company in the automotive sector, it is a crucial signal of production capacity and consumer demand. Upon adjusting GDP by the inflation rate, the product is known as real GDP. This is particularly important when comparing and measuring economic growth. Inflation is the rate at which generic price ranges of goods and services rises. This phenomenon is measured and monitored via the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. While small to mild inflation is normal and welcomed, high levels of inflation gnaw away at consumer purchasing power, make bigger expenses such as property and vehicles less attractive and affordable. On the contrary, deflation can be seen as an indicator of stagnation in the economy. The final indicator is unemployment. Unemployment tracks the proportion and percentage of the labor force which are actively seeking yet unable to find work. In the case that unemployment is rising, this typically signifies decreased activity in the economy. These indicators are a fundamental aspect of understanding the business cycle, the differences between contractions and expansions within the economy. Beginning with a contraction or recession, unemployment will increase, GDP will decrease, and inflation will often slow down. In the opposite case, when undergoing expansion, GDP will increase, unemployment will decrease, and inflation may marginally increase. Understanding these concepts can help to predict and anticipate fluctuations in the vehicle sales market, consumer financing capabilities, and demand for maintenance jobs and services. For example, if forecasts indicate a downturn, preparations might be made by moderating marketing expenses, reviewing staffing expenses and strategies, and tightening inventory. At KAI Automotive Group, aligning our preparations with the broad scope business cycle is imperative for maintaining and sustaining profitability and the longevity of the firm. Let's pivot to international trade, specifically the impacts of tariffs and tensions in trade chains on Australia and on our firm. Tariffs are taxes on goods which are imported. Recently, these taxes have become much more prevalent, particularly during this period where President Trump has been in office. President Trump made the decision to impose tariffs upon a large range of goods to assist industries in the United States that were in need of protection and assistance. The macroeconomic effects of tariffs can be further explored through the aggregate demand, aggregate supply ADAS model. From an Australian perspective, the tariffs imposed by the United States on our exports will lower our net exports, an essential component of aggregate demand. This will therefore result in a leftward shift in the aggregate demand curve, resulting in higher unemployment rates and lower outputs in the short run. For KAI Automotive, this change will result in lessened global trade flows, volatility in local currency, and potential for increase on the cost of imported goods. In the United States, the short-term goal of these tariffs is aimed at boosting production domestically. This may initially shift the aggregate demand curve rightward as domestic producers adapt to this increased demand. In the event that other countries take a stand and retaliate, it will lead to additional rising cost of inputs, limited supply, and long-term inefficiency. Paying attention to the ADAS model, this change may cause a cost-push short-run inflation, especially if prices for input materials rise. Larger issue is the uncertainty these tariffs bring with them. Trade tensions are very capable of disrupting and reducing investor confidence in supply chains. This means that in an import and export reliant automotive sector in Australia, the related implications are severe. At KAI Automotive Group, further escalation of the trade wars may mean increased prices on imported parts and vehicles, uncertainty regarding global sourcing of parts, lowered demand for exports, and in the event of the Australian dollar depreciating, large currency risks. This further highlights the importance of the diversification of suppliers and paying sharp attention to geopolitical risks and matters around the world, to ensure that changes can be adjusted for. To conclude, trade barriers do not simply pose a national policy issue. They pose a significant threat and create issues from a business perspective, disrupting everything from production timelines to pricing. Moving away from trade tensions and macro trends, let's shift our focus to a smaller aspect, behavioral economics, a field which delves into the decision-making patterns of people with real-life context. In particular, the way these individuals deviate from standard classical models of rationality. Traditional models of economics are created upon the assumption of Homo economicus, the notion that individuals are always perfectly rational and can make the most optimal decisions based on their available information. However, behavioral economics creates a more realistic lens to look through, understanding that individuals consistently rely on heuristics, mental shortcuts, and are subject to emotional influences and bias. A notable example of this phenomenon lies in the public's food choices, particularly regarding the realm of healthy and unhealthy eating. While classic models of economics would predict that individuals are going to select the most beneficial, nutritious, and cost-effective option, behavioral economics showcases that several biases and preferences lie in play. A major factor is present bias, the likelihood to choose immediate gratification instead of long-term benefit. An example of this would be eating an unhealthy sugary snack instead of eating a salad. This example shows that the individuals are making a trade-off between satisfying their current cravings instead of protecting their future health. Another factor is status quo bias. This bias allows us to understand why individuals choose to eat familiar food choices and stick in routines even when healthier and objectively better options are available. One of the most important factors to consider in behavioral economics is framing effects, the way choices are presented. Framing effects significantly influence individual behavior. These can be seen in marketing schemes for ready-made meals. Often companies choose to label their meals as low-fat as it appeals to the individual as a healthy option, instead of openly advertising the meal's actual calorie content. Here at Kari Automotive Group, it is imperative that we understand these behavioral patterns. It can directly affect the workplace well-being and inform strategies for its improvement. For example, at these staff events, changes can be made to give employees a further nudge and opportunity to make healthier food choices. This could be achieved through convenient placement of these nutritious items and better presentation of the more nutritious alternatives, which would boost overall employee well-being and reduce absenteeism in the long run. To conclude, behavioral economics is an important aspect of helping and understanding our customers and can also shape the way we manage and support each other internally. Now, shifting our focus to a more integral and structural issue which is affecting the broad scope economy and our workforce. The impact of artificial intelligence in labour markets. To help visualize this, let's have a look at these two diagrams of the labour market. Prior to the widespread adoption of AI, both markets appear to be at equilibrium. As AI technologies further develop, we'll have a shift. The demand curve for skilled labour will shift rightward. This change would result in an increase in wages and higher levels of employment. On the contrary, unskilled and routine roles can be replaced or substituted by AI. The demand for these jobs would decrease, hence shifting the demand curve leftward, leading to higher unemployment and lower wages. These shifts are grounded by the assumption that AI can complement skilled labour and is able to substitute or replace unskilled tasks. There would be a major observable consequence in wage inequality, a gap which will continue to widen unless specifically targeted by government or corporate policies or strategies. This means that at Kari Automotive Group, the importance of proactive upskilling is on the rise, as AI and its capabilities of automating tasks will become further embedded within logistics, diagnostics, and customer service. It is necessary that we ensure our workforce adapts appropriately and accordingly. To combat this, upskilling programs and a strong focus on talent retention will be critical to avoid internal conflict and disparities and will ensure we retain our competitive edge. Finally, while artificial intelligence will drive efficiency and innovations, it will also revise the way our labour force operates. Recognizing and embracing this now will ensure that our people and profitability will be protected in the long run. To conclude and summarize, today we have explored the forces which are interlinked and are shaping our business environment. The cyclic nature of macroeconomy, global trade tensions and their ripple effects, psychological basis of individual choice, and the major structural shifts we must embrace due to new emerging technologies. These factors do not simply operate in isolation. At Kari Automotive Group, recognizing how they will shape our workplace and intersect will allow us to make more informed and future-proof decisions. By altering our strategy to align with trade policies, economic conditions, employee behaviors, and technological advances, we can place ourselves in the best position to succeed. Ultimately, the informed decision-making which starts today will secure our position in the evolving economy of tomorrow. Thank you.